There's something invisible, something almost nobody notices, yet it changes everything. It's not about your job, your looks, or even how much you can provide. It's a silent signal, one thing that separates you from every other man. And if you see it, if you feel it, you'll understand why some men are unforgettable and others are easily forgotten. Emotional depth is something most people talk about, but few truly understand. It is not measured by the way someone laughs loudly in a room or how easily he can charm a crowd. Emotional depth is quiet, subtle, and often invisible to the world. It is the ability to feel fully, to experience not just the surface of life, but the layers beneath. A man with emotional depth does not shy away from his own feelings. He confronts them, he understands them, and he allows himself to be vulnerable in ways that are both rare and powerful. It is in the small, almost imperceptible actions that his depth is revealed, how he notices when someone is struggling, how he pauses before speaking to consider the weight of his words, how he absorbs the pain and joy around him without judgment or the need to perform. Such a man does not rush to fix what is broken or to provide answers before understanding the question. He listens, not for the sake of responding, but for the sake of truly knowing. Emotional depth is in the way he remembers the stories you thought you had whispered into the wind, the way he holds your sorrows without turning them into a burden, and the way he celebrates your joys without feeling diminished by them. It is the ability to exist fully in someone else's world without trying to dominate it or reshape it in his own image. People with emotional depth do not wear their sensitivity as a badge or flaunt their understanding as a tool. It is part of their core, quietly threading through every interaction, every choice, every silence between words. A man with emotional depth sees beyond appearances. He does not confuse strength with stoicism or courage with arrogance. He knows that tears are not weakness and that admitting uncertainty is not failure. There is a patience to him, a willingness to navigate the complexity of life rather than simplify it into what is easy or convenient. He can sit in discomfort without fleeing, listen without defending, and feel without needing to explain. This depth allows him to empathize, not in fleeting moments of performative compassion, but in sustained ways that change how people feel in his presence. Those around him notice it subconsciously. They feel held, seen, and understood, even when no words are spoken. Emotional depth also comes with the courage to face oneself. It requires looking into the darkest corners of one's mind and heart, confronting insecurities, regrets, and contradictions without flinching. A man with depth does not shy away from reflection or self awareness. He welcomes it, knowing that true growth is born from honesty and acceptance. In a world that prizes the external, success, looks, status, this kind of man prioritizes the internal. He measures life not by how others perceive him, but by how authentically he can inhabit his own. This is why emotional depth is rare and why it is often misunderstood. It does not shout, it does not demand attention, it simply exists, quietly but profoundly, changing the way the world interacts with him and how he interacts with the world. Authenticity is a quiet force that sets some men apart without them ever trying. It is not about impressing others, following trends, or wearing a mask that hides who they truly are. Authenticity is being unapologetically oneself in a world that constantly demands conformity. A man who is authentic does not bend to the expectations of society or the judgments of those around him. He speaks with honesty, not with the intent to please or to manipulate, but because his words reflect his true feelings. There is a consistency in him, a rare alignment between what he thinks, what he feels, and what he shows to the world. This alignment is magnetic because it is unshakable. People are drawn to it even if they cannot articulate why, sensing a depth and reliability that goes beyond surface charm or outward confidence. Being authentic requires courage. It is not easy to admit when you are wrong, to own your flaws, or to face the vulnerability that comes with being real. Most men hide behind bravado, ego, or carefully crafted personas to avoid the discomfort of exposure. But authenticity is the opposite of hiding. It is showing up fully, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it invites criticism or misunderstanding. An authentic man does not need to prove his worth through material success or social validation. He knows that his value lies in who he is at his core, not in how others perceive him. This self awareness allows him to navigate relationships and life with honesty, creating connections that are not transactional or superficial, but deep, meaningful, and enduring. There is a subtle beauty in authenticity that others often overlook. It appears in the little choices he makes, the way he admits when he doesn't know something, the way he offers help without expectation, the way he laughs genuinely without forcing humor. Authenticity shows in his interactions with people across every spectrum, whether he is talking to a stranger on the street, a colleague at work, or someone he loves deeply. There is no performance, no hidden agenda, no carefully curated image. What you see is what you get, and that transparency creates a sense of safety and trust that is hard to find in a world full of facades. Authenticity also allows a man to honor his own emotions without being controlled by them. He can feel deeply anger, sadness, joy, longing without letting these emotions define him or dictate his behavior in destructive ways. He embraces his imperfections and acknowledges his mistakes, knowing that these are not weaknesses, but evidence of being human. This ability to remain true to oneself, even in moments of difficulty or self doubt, separates him from the many who compromise their principles or silence their hearts to fit in. In a society obsessed with appearances and approval, an authentic man stands apart, not because he demands recognition, but because he embodies a truth that cannot be ignored. Consistency is often overlooked because it doesn't demand attention or applause, yet it is one of the quietest and strongest markers of true character. Most people are drawn to flashes of brilliance, to moments that shine brightly but fade as quickly as they appear. Consistency is different. It is the steady rhythm that remains even when the world changes, when excitement fades, and when challenges arise. A man with consistency does not rely on grand gestures or occasional displays of kindness to define him. Instead, he shows up the same way every day through the small actions that often go unnoticed, the repeated choices that reveal his values, and the unwavering presence that makes others feel safe and valued. This quality is not about perfection. It is not about always saying the right thing or always being in control. Consistency is about reliability, about being someone others can trust, even when no one is watching, even when it is inconvenient or exhausting. It is in the promises he keeps, the respect he shows, and the effort he invests without expectation of reward. It is the man who checks in, not because it is his duty, but because it is who he is at the core. It is the man who remembers the little things, the birthday you thought he forgot, the text you sent at 2 a.m. when you were lonely, the quiet support he gives when life feels heavy. Consistency turns actions into trust, and trust into something that lasts far longer than charm, looks, or words ever could. There is a depth to consistency that is often invisible at first glance. It requires patience, self discipline, and emotional maturity. A man cannot be consistent if he is ruled by whims, ego, or fleeting emotions. He must understand his own priorities, know his own boundaries, and remain grounded in his principles. This steadfastness does not mean rigidity or a lack of flexibility. On the contrary, it is the balance between resilience and adaptability, the ability to remain true to one's values while navigating life's unpredictability. People with consistency do not chase every trend, opinion, or fleeting desire. They invest in relationships, goals, and values that matter, and they nurture them over time. Consistency also speaks to integrity in ways words cannot. It is seen in the alignment of actions with beliefs, in the repetition of behavior that reflects genuine care, and in the avoidance of hypocrisy or pretension. A consistent man treats everyone the same, whether in public or private, with the same respect, honesty, and attention. He does not alter his behavior to please, manipulate, or impress. Those around him sense it intuitively. They feel grounded, understood, and secure in his presence. Over time, this quiet reliability becomes more powerful than any flamboyant gesture because it creates a foundation that cannot be shaken, a presence that becomes a part of life, a thread that weaves through daily moments and binds them with a sense of permanence. That is rare and beautiful. Respect for women is one of the quietest yet most profound indicators of a man's true character. It is not about saying the right words in public or performing gestures that look impressive to others. True respect is felt in the small, everyday actions that reveal a man's understanding of equality, empathy, and humanity. It is the way he listens when a woman speaks, without interrupting or dismissing her thoughts, the way he values her opinions even when they challenge his own, and the way he allows her to exist fully without attempting to control, diminish, or define her. This respect is not conditional, nor is it performative. It is ingrained, instinctive, and consistent, a reflection of how deeply he understands her worth beyond beauty, charm, or convenience. A man who truly respects women does not measure them by their ability to fit into his world or meet his expectations. He recognizes their autonomy, their ambitions, their emotions, and their voices as valid in their own right. He does not see vulnerability as weakness, nor does he exploit sensitivity for his own comfort or ego. Respect is shown in the way he supports her growth without feeling threatened, celebrates her achievements without envy, and stands beside her as an equal, not as someone who must dominate or guide. It is in the way he defends her dignity when others overlook it, and in the way he refrains from jokes, words, or behaviors that belittle or objectify her. Small moments of consideration, a gesture, a word, a pause to understand, become the threads that weave a fabric of respect that is visible not just in public, but in the quiet, private spaces where true character is revealed. This respect also reflects emotional maturity. A man who respects women has learned that relationships are not about control or validation, but about partnership, understanding, and mutual growth. He can navigate disagreements without condescension or aggression, and he communicates with clarity, empathy, and patience. He knows that listening is not the same as agreeing, and that being supportive does not mean suppressing his own voice, but creating a space where both voices are honored. Women sense this immediately, even if it is subtle. They feel safe, valued, and seen, not because of grand declarations, but because of the way he consistently interacts with integrity and care. Respect for women also reveals itself in how a man treats women he does not know personally. It is easy to be courteous to someone you love, but the true test of respect is in how he behaves towards strangers, co-workers, or even fleeting acquaintances. Does he listen without condescension? Does he refrain from assumptions or judgments based on stereotypes? Does he recognize the humanity in every woman he meets, rather than reducing her to a role, an image, or an expectation? In these subtle, repeated interactions, respect becomes more than a principle. It becomes a habit, a natural reflection of his values, and a signal of the depth of his character, shaping the way the world perceives him and the way those around him feel in his presence. Empathy and understanding are not qualities that can be faked, and they are certainly not learned overnight. They require patience, emotional awareness, and a willingness to step outside oneself to truly feel the world through another person's eyes. A man who possesses empathy does not merely hear words, he listens to the meaning behind them, the emotions that often go unspoken, and the silent weight carried in gestures, silences, and expressions. Understanding is not passive. It demands attention and sensitivity, an awareness that every person has experiences, fears, and desires that shape their choices and reactions. This kind of man does not rush to judge, dismiss, or correct. Instead, he allows himself to sit in discomfort, to witness pain without the urge to fix it immediately, and to validate feelings that might seem irrational, inconvenient, or unseen by others. True empathy extends beyond romantic relationships or friendships. It permeates every interaction with people. He notices when a stranger is struggling with more than they show, when a colleague carries stress behind a calm exterior, when a friend hides their sorrow behind a smile. This awareness is paired with action, but not performative action. It is the quiet gesture of checking in, the patient presence in difficult moments, the ability to provide support without seeking acknowledgement. A man with empathy sees connection as more than superficial communication. He understands that the impact of his words and deeds can linger long after a conversation ends, shaping confidence, hope, and trust in ways that are subtle but profound. Understanding requires a deep respect for perspective. A man with this quality does not assume that his experiences or beliefs are universal. He recognizes that every person navigates life with their own fears, expectations, and memories, and that judgments based solely on his perspective are incomplete. This awareness allows him to respond thoughtfully, to offer guidance without imposing, and to engage with compassion, even in disagreement. He does not dismiss feelings because they differ from his own, nor does he try to rationalize emotions to fit his understanding. Instead, he meets them on their terms, offering patience, listening, and validation. Empathy is also an act of courage. It requires facing discomfort, vulnerability, and sometimes grief without shutting down or withdrawing. A man who is truly empathetic does not fear the intensity of others' emotions because he has learned to navigate his own. He allows himself to feel sorrow without being overwhelmed, joy without being diminished, and confusion without losing composure. Understanding becomes his lens, shaping how he approaches life, relationships, and challenges. It is what allows him to remain grounded when the world is chaotic, to respond with calmness when anger or pain surfaces, and to create spaces where people feel safe, seen, and heard. In a world that often values self interest over connection, empathy and understanding distinguish a man in ways that are subtle yet unforgettable, defining the depth of his character and the quality of the relationships he builds. Quiet strength is not the kind of power that demands attention or seeks recognition. It is not loud, flashy, or performative. It does not boast about achievements or measure itself against others. True quiet strength is calm, steady, and unwavering, a presence that anchors those around it without the need for declaration. It is the kind of strength that can hold through storms, that can stand firm without rigidity, that can face adversity without bitterness. A man with quiet strength does not prove himself through dominance, intimidation, or loud displays of confidence. Instead, he demonstrates his resilience through consistency, patience, and the courage to remain true to himself and to others, even when the world tests him in ways that no one else sees. This strength is often invisible at first glance because it manifests in subtle, everyday actions rather than dramatic gestures. It shows in the way he listens without rushing to speak, in the way he supports without controlling, and in the way he makes decisions with integrity rather than impulse. A man with quiet strength does not need applause or validation for his efforts. His strength exists independently of recognition, rooted in his understanding of his values and principles. It allows him to face failure with grace, disappointment with patience, and criticism with reflection rather than defensiveness. There is a resilience in him that comes from understanding that life will not always go according to plan, but that he has the inner resources to endure, adapt, and continue moving forward without losing his center. Quiet strength also requires emotional intelligence and self awareness. It is not stoicism or suppression of feelings. It is the ability to feel deeply, to acknowledge pain, fear, and vulnerability, yet not let them dictate actions in destructive ways. It is the power to confront difficulties with composure, to offer support to others without being drained by their struggles, and to maintain empathy without losing boundaries. A man with this strength knows that true courage is not in loud declarations, but in calm perseverance, that leadership is not in control, but in guidance, and that influence is not in force, but in example. This is why people instinctively gravitate toward those with quiet strength. They feel safe, understood, and supported without the pressure of expectation or performance.